When we're in the land of the seriously afflicted, we're extremely vulnerable. And we feel lost and like we really need help to even survive. And of course, the first place we go is doctors. If I could tell people one thing, it would be, when you become seriously afflicted, do not leave your critical thinking at the door. Because as vulnerable as you feel, that's the time that you need to gather your inner forces. And as you sit across from that doctor who's telling you you have months to live, get your affairs in order, there's nothing we can do, if you plan to survive, you're going to have to ask him some questions. And I'm not sure all the reasons why people do not question their doctors. I think part of it is because it's just a whole lifetime of conditioning to learn that the doctor knows best. I've begun to suspect that perhaps people who've had a bad diagnosis are afraid to ask the questions. They know what those questions are, but they're afraid of the answer. So for the patient side, I would say, you've got to ask the questions, you know. When an oncologist would tell me something, I'd say, what do you mean by that? How come? Why? Tell me more about that. And when you start asking those questions, you start getting a whole different line of information. But if you don't ask those questions, it may cost you your life. Because doctors, first, there are two different kinds of doctors. There are the kind of doctors who are punching a time clock, and they'll tell you whatever they tell everybody, and they'll tell you the things that'll make life easier for them. And they may not care whether you live or die on it, or whether they've just kept from you the one treatment that would save your life. And then there's a whole other kind of doctor. I think it's an old-fashioned kind of doctor, the kind that actually has dedicated their life to saving people's lives and to getting the best outcome they can for people, and that actually care if you ask them a question, they would go look it up and come back to you. So not all doctors are created equal. And particularly if you need an extraordinarily complex surgery like I had to have, all surgeons are truly not created equal. And the other thing that people need to know is that doctors may have an agenda. They may have several kinds of agendas that we know not of. And so that's the other reason you have to ask these questions. Now, because I've been so involved with insurance, the world of insurance, how insurance drives medical care, I believe that most of your doctors we're going to see at first are going to be in the network. We give them an insurance card, and they see us. People accept that this is the way of life, this is the way of the world, but we need to think about this. If your doctor is in network, he's bound by contract to the insurance company, which means that he really needs to do what the insurance company tells him to do. He's not separate from the insurance company. He can't fight the insurance company. He is bound by contract to that insurance company. And it's been my observation that over the years, if a doctor has spent his entire working life in network with the insurance, and his father spent his whole life being in network, they become conditioned to prescribe things that the insurance company would like to pay for. In other words, they become the agent of the insurance company, to where the subtle priority is really more serving the insurance company rather than the patient. I mean, there are HMOs where if the doctor refers you out of network, he may be fined or sanctioned for doing that. If you knew that, wouldn't you think differently when he told you to go to an in-network surgeon? And there's the insidious way that insurance drives medical care. It gets to where some of these in-network doctors just automatically recommend the thing that the insurance company would pay for. The cheapest thing first, the in-network thing first, when that might not be the only treatment that would save your life. So you need to ask him, how come? If he says, the in-network doctor down the hallway, oh, he's the best surgeon for this, and then he'll sell you on it. He'll say, I'd send my mother to him. Oh, he's great. I've known him since medical school. That's not good enough for you. You have to ask the question, what is it about him that makes him so great? Why is he the best for this? And I guarantee you, what you're going to hear most of the time is a whole lot of irrational, unreasonable, ridiculous answers, because the reason he's referring you to that in-network surgeon is probably because it just makes life easier. He's in-network. Once you come down with a serious illness or condition, the first thing you need to know is you're going to be in charge. I never heard about the life-saving treatment from my doctors. Most people don't. So it behooves you to say, I am now my medical manager. I'm going to pull myself together and get out of my vulnerable space and recognize that it's going to be my hero's journey, I got to be the hero here. And take everything that everyone says with a grain of salt and go verify it for yourself. And that includes, if you finally find an expert, ask them the questions too. You don't take anything for granted. And if you do all that, you'll wind up like me 9 years later, perfectly healthy.